Mylavarapu Sudha Mohan is an aviation professional by trade whose true passion lies in Hinduism, its history and its legacy of colonization. In the past, he has authored 2 books and several articles on the challenges faced by the Hindu community of today. His latest book, Shivasya Kulam, talks about the colonial narratives and distortions along with the actual dimensions of caste, untouchability, and Dravidianism, exposing the Christian onslaught on Hindu society. Sri Mylavarapu Sudha Mohan Garu, if you have a copy of your book, you might even display the cover page, front cover of the book, and then start your talk.
Sure, sir. I put it in my presentation. It is in the last slide. So I'll begin my presentation.
Yeah, please. Okay.
वागर्धाविव संपृक्तौ वागर्ध प्रतिपत्तये जगतः पितरौ वंदे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ सदाशिव समारंभां शंकराचार्य मध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्य पर्यन्तां वंदे गुरु परंपराम्. नमस्सर्वेभ्यः स्वागतम्. This is a disclaimer. My earlier speakers, Sri Arvind Rauji and Sri Nitin Sridharji, did an amazing job in presenting Shastric point of view on Varna. In this presentation, I would like to discuss colonial caste theory and Varna, Kula, Jati. By the end, you will understand the differences. So let's begin our presentation with by understanding the European society and caste. In European society, a single unit classification called caste was used to identify materialistic hierarchical divisions. Europeans used this term caste to identify race, occupational divisions, and guilds, tribes, and so on. The Spanish Sistema de Casta is a hierarchical ordering of racial groups according to their proportion of Spanish blood. The 1901 Census Commissioner H.H. Risley says that the term caste came from Latin castus, which meant purity of breed. Several prominent Europeans of the past used caste to identify race. This race-based class or caste system was a crucial part of Christian society, and it existed until mid of 20th century in Western countries like USA. Abrahamic religions practice not only race-based racism, but also religious racism. The believer and non-believer dichotomy and the subsequent persecution of non-believers is the best example of Abrahamic religious casteism or racism. During the colonial period, British did everything to prove that they are a higher race. And this caste or class structure reflected in their social behavior in all spheres. For example, in trains, Indians were not allowed to travel in the same coach with the white people. The job recruitment policy heavily discriminated Indians. Another important facet is that they imposed a British feudal taxation model on Hindus. Thus, its related terminology created serfdom and slavery in Hindu society. During this process, they did not consider the impact of Islamic governance on Hindu society. For example, during Shah Jahan's regime, when Wrights could not pay taxes, their wives and kids were sold in the market. All these ills were attributed to Hindu society. Thus, a slavery or serfdom was created. In India, Europeans used caste to identify family, religion, occupation, tribes, etc. Finally, they narrowed down their usage. Initially, they said Varna was caste, and later they settled down with Jati. They used this negative term caste to identify Varna, Kula, Jati of the Hindu society. According to a few books, it was Garcia da Horta, a newly converted Christian or a lower caste person, who first used casta to identify a few Jatis in 16th century. In the same century, Duarte Barbosa also used this term in a different way. Later, it was the Jesuits and missionaries who popularized the Hindu caste. Since the 16th century, Christians tried to define Hindu caste In that pursuit, each one of them came up with a different definition. Till date, there is no common consensus on the definition of caste pertaining to Hindu society. By 1820s and 30s, the Spanish Sistema de Casta and the French system were abolished. It was at this period the Hindu caste system gained prominence. This, in a way, justified the British colonization and its subsequent need to civilize and enslave Hindus and Hinduism. Since then, the Europeans wrote many books describing caste, but they could not define what precisely caste meant, which means they don't know what they're talking about. They selected a few aspects of Hindu society and inserted them into the European experience and history. Thus, a caste was constructed. This caste was officially institutionalized in 1901 when British enforced a hierarchical caste framework on Hindus using a relative social status method. Regarding the hierarchy in Hindu society, colonial reports themselves suggest that many sects did not accept a Brahmin superiority. British conflated these various sadhana paths into their understanding of European caste system. Hindu systems were built on diversity such as Kala, Desha, and Kriya. So most of these systems were decentralized. But to convert these systems as centralized systems and to create an oppressive caste-like structure, hierarchy is necessary. So for this conversion, British came up with various methods. One such method was Brahmin-centric hierarchy model. Many viewed Varna model through the Kshatriya-centric hierarchy also. Be as it may, while British were creating Brahmin-centric hierarchy, many Jatis opposed to keep Brahmins in the superior position. British ignored these objections and went ahead with their choice of hierarchy, thus came up with Indian version of British caste system. This pyramid format is a wrong depiction of Hindu, Varna, Kula, Jati systems. This model pretty much imitated the 1901 census arrangement. This hierarchical model used Varna and Saucha, which means it was the sadhana and Saucha coupled with colonial poverty that was depicted in a hierarchical manner at par with racist Christian caste. This skewed model ignored all contrarian evidence. For example, many Jatis opposed the sacerdotal authority of Brahmins. Each Jati had their own version of hierarchy. And the caste categories such as low, high, or untouchable, Panchama were also created by the British. None of the Jatis felt inferior, including the so-called low caste. A version of Achara Bheda was selectively portrayed as untouchability. This depiction ignored Achara foundation of the Hindu society. It overlapped the poverty resulted from the colonial misrule onto the respect given to various Jatis and the Achara, and thus created a Hindu caste system. A few aspects of Jati was selectively used to construct a racial Hindu caste. In this process, mobility mechanisms were suppressed or ignored. In India, colonial administration was heavily centralized. On the contrary, many Hindu systems were decentralized. These decentralized systems were forced to become centralized to serve colonizers' needs rather than serving the individual's needs. In this forceful conversion, Varna, Kula, Jati's complex matrix of multiple systems and identities were reduced into a single centralized alien grouping called caste. Let's now briefly look at a few meanings of native institutions. Amarakosha gives various definitions to Varna, Kula, Jati. Varna is part of Prakriti. Varnashrama Dharma is part of eternal Dharma. Varna is part of Rita, or Atma, and Prakriti, and thus Varnashrama Dharma is part of eternal Dharma. Varnashrama Dharma is also is divided into Samanya, Vishesha, and Apad Dharma spheres. So in order to get the eligibility to the Vishesha Dharma, one must fulfill the obligations of Samanya Dharma. Parashara Smriti talks about Chaturvarna and the importance of Achara to these four Varnas. Texts like Bhavishya Purana, Chidgagana Chandrika, etc. say that Kula means a group of people in a common spiritual pursuit and Achara. Kula Navatantra say that Kula means Shakti, which means a group of people in the spiritual pursuit of a Shakti. So it is this that I used as the title for my book. Shivasya Kulam means Shiva's Shakti. So at the same time, Jati has the term Jati has several meanings, of which two are very important for us. One is birth and the other is commonalities. As we can see, Kula is attached to sadhana, achara, vritti, and education. In spiritual sphere, Jati denotes either dharma or achara or sadhana. Colonial reductionistic approach converted a natural, spiritual, dharmic, sadhana-based categories into materialistic racial castes. This equated the indigenous spirituality with race and racism. Importantly, it ignored many spiritual mechanisms that were in practice in the society. For example, achara-based social mobility, obtaining Kshatriya occupations and vocations, various types of interjati hypergamic marital relations, Vamachara practices, degradation, excommunications, and so on. And thus, it colonized Hinduism with caste. This incomplete information-based view presently causing confusion, harm, and in turn helping the Hindu divisive forces. The colonial caste system closed the window of claiming the Kshatriya occupations and a change of achara. Thereby, various jatis lost the incentive of showing their akshatra to protect Hindu society. This blocked the social mobility of the so-called low caste. Now let's understand the relation between the Rita or Atma to the individual. Everything in the universe is filled with Atma or Rita. As we see in this picture, Jivatma is a replica of Paramatma. Being covered with Prakriti, Jivatma is filled with Trigunas. These three gunas are represented with three Varnas. Intermixture of these gunas are represented in four Varnas. Skanda Purana addresses the Varna and Jati as Prakritis. It says each Prakriti is divided into Uttama, Madhyama, and Sama levels. And it lists 18 such Prakritis. A few other texts address these Jatis or Prakritis as Ashtadasha Praja. So in order to attain Swaswarupa Jnana, purity of mind is essential. To attain this purity and Jnana, yogic sadhana, karmakanda, etc. are prescribed by the Shastras. Vedanta also agrees with the importance of yoga, yoga sadhana for attaining purity of chitta. Jnana and moksha are nicely explained in various texts. For example, Vedanta Dindima talks about moksha and says, there can be no difference between the individual and Brahman in terms of name and form because the latter are unreal. It also says there can be no difference between the individual and Brahman because of the difference between the universal bodies and because both of them are one and the same. This is another illustration detailing Purusha and Prakriti. Shaivites call them as Shiva and Shakti. The layout of Varnashrama Dharma is mainly aimed to guide the individual towards moksha or aparoksha anubhuti. Jivatma Paramatma relation is very clearly explained in four Vedic Mahavakyas. Tattvamasi Aham Brahmasmi, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayamatma Brahma. According to Hinduism, each person must fulfill his four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Hindu texts understand that each individual is longing for happiness. And this happiness or ananda is of two types, Kritrima and Akritrima. Thus, they encourage the individual to strive for Shashvatananda Sthiti, which is moksha. Bhogavada gives importance to Artha Kama, but the crude Bhogavada is nothing but pure materialism. This can lead the mankind towards self-destruction. West currently is fully immersed in this process. Karma is of two types, Sat and Asat Karma. And Sat Karma leads to Dharma and Asat Karma leads to Adharma, which means Sat Karma leads the individuals towards Rita and Asat Karma leads to Anrita. Therefore, Ardha Kama must be earned by doing Sat Karma, which leads the individuals towards Rita and Moksha. We know that Dharma Shastras guide the Hindu society. Along with Smritis, we also have so many Agamas and Tantras that prescribe various methods of sadhana to attain Purushartha. Smarta path followed Smriti and its related Vidinisheda, i.e. Sat and Asat Karma. But the Smritis are actually divided into three spheres. They're called Achara, Vyavahara, and Prayaschitta. Smarta path follows these rules as part of their Achara, and this is generally called Vaidika Achara. Hinduism understands that men are different and the Prakriti is filled with Deshakala Bheda. Therefore, Smritis allowed various types of sadhanas to suit the needs of this diversity. As men and their chitta vrittis are different, so does the sadhanas. So, due to which, in Achara and Prayaschitta sphere, all jatis were given their own space. So, this is clearly recorded in history. Since the time of Adi Shankara, many Hindu sects belong to Agamika or Tantrika paths, had their own methods of sadhana, and some did not believe in Vidhi Nisheda. Many sects had their own acharas and prayaschitta. At Vyavahara level, it may appear that smritis are enforced, but in reality, they are not. Since the past 2 centuries or so, British removed the legal base to smriti-based institutions. They replaced the inheritance laws to suit the Christian conversion. Marriage and divorce laws were replaced to enforce Christian ideology of Bhogavada. British laws and reforms destroyed the Mitaksharas joint family system. It is very unfortunate that in independent India, there was no study took place on the plight of Smritis in Rajadharma sphere. These sadhana methods start to the sadhaka on the basis of Adhikari Bheda Siddhanta. Guru gives diksha to the individual into a particular sadhana. Importantly, the sadhana is divided into Vaidika and Tantrika paths, and also into Antaranga and Bahiranga sadhana modes. These 2 methods are again divided into various bhumikas. Vaidika method of sadhana involving strict Indriya Nigraha are given to Dvija. The rest have Adhikara in Agamika and Tantrika paths of sadhana. This means Agamika, Tantrika mode of sadhana and Achara are influencing the Shudra Varna Jati's social behavior with a lot of leniency in habits. We can see slokas detailing such layout in European writings also. In 1893, Gustav Oppert wrote a book called Original Inhabitants of Bharatavarsha, in which he cited a sloka from Parashara Grama Devata Pratishtha. The sloka says, Brahmananam Shivo Devaha, Kshatriyanam tu Madhavaha, Vaishyanam tu Bhavet Brahma, Shudranam Grama Devata. Indeed, Parashara Vaidikagama Sutra consists of Grama Devata Pratishtha Paddhati. It is important to note that according to Parashara, Grama Devatas are part of Dharma. But according to the missionaries and the colonial government, Grama Devatas are not part of Hinduism, and they concluded that Grama Devatas belong to Dravidian religion. Grama Devata pujaris are mainly from present Dalit groups. Early 20th century, Bishop Henry Whitehead elaborately explained why and how Christians must destroy these Grama Devata temples to convert these Dalit groups into Christianity. It is this we are witnessing in today's Bharata. The present endowment department is doing its best to kill all Grama Devata traditions also. These Grama Devatas and Bhuta Vaidyam are linked to the so-called Dravidian religion. Importantly, Grama Devatas are intimately connected with Ayurveda and Tantrism. For example, Sitala Devi is considered as a goddess of chicken pox. In Bengal and Orissa, there used to be a native Tika system, native Tika vaccination system. A Britisher named Holwell in 18th century wrote a book about describing the greatness of the Hindu Tika system. But this system was attacked by colonizers who copied, modified the native medical methods and systems. It is important to note that the tradition of Sati Sahagamana was also linked to the native medicine, diseases, and the Grama Devatas. Colonial propaganda popularized that only women kill themselves, but Hindu men who were suffering with diseases such as leprosy were also burned themselves alive. And not only Hindu men, but Muslim men suffering with diseases were also buried alive too. So going back to Grama Devata Pratishtha Paddhati, this text talks about installation of Grama Devatas by Sampradaya. For Shaktas, the Grama Devatas are to be installed outside the village. For Kapalikas, in Smashana. And it also talks about other traditions. We can see Vaidika Tantrika layout in various Saivite and Vaishnavite texts. The point we must remember is that Agamika and Tantrika mode of sadhana or achara is influencing the Shudra Varna Jatis or Kulas. As observed earlier, the term Jati has many dimensions and meanings, of which 2 are important to us. One is Jati means birth, and the other one means clubbing things based on commonalities. Some say that Jati was used to identify territorial, worship, occupational groups. A shloka in Sarvolasa Tantra and Vishnu Gita says that Achara Mula Jati, which means Achara is the key to understand a Jati, and this Achara includes various types of medical practices. In spiritual sphere, Jati either denotes Varna or Kula. In order to understand the Shudra Varna Jati's spiritual functionality, it is important to understand various Agamika and Tantric rules. Many traditions proposed non-birth based theories. For example, a Agamic or Tantric ideology at times asks the sadhaka to renounce his Jati. And a branch of Tantric sadhana is mainly aimed to remove the Astapashas. For example, a sloka in Kularnava Tantra says, Gruna Lajja Bhayam Shanka Jugupsa Cheti Panchami Kulam Shilam Tada Jati Rashto Pasha Prakirtita Pasha Baddo Pashugneya Pasha Mukto Maheshwaraha Tasmat Papaharo Yastu Saha Paramo Mataha. Each Sampradaya defined Bandha Moksha in their own way and prescribed their sadhana methods on these terms. The purpose of this sadhana is to attain jnana and moksha or aproksha anubhuti. Those who got Atma Sakshatkara or transcended the Varnashrama, to them Varnashrama rules do not apply. But the colonial caste system did not take this into consideration. Buddhism also honored the Jatis. Their mythology have references to Bodhisattva coming from Varnashrama background. They believed in high birth and low birth. Thus, it becomes very important to understand Buddhist influence on Jati systems. Not many people can practice strict Indriya Nigraha. Therefore, different Sampradayas arose to address this. In fact, various Buddhist Sampradayas evolved because many did not want to practice strict rules set by Buddha. Because many wanted Bhoga-centered religion. Thus, slowly Hindu Tantras were exported into Buddhism. It was the Vamacharik Vajrayana that accelerated the collapse of Buddhism. Islamic colonialism also contributed to its decline in multiple ways. The same pattern of Bhagavada can be seen in Hinduism too, which means in the past, strict Indriya Nigraha based Brahminhood was not an appealing position to many in the society. Adi Shankara's debate with various Vamacharik sects gives us a snapshot of what happened in the past. So in the past, many also avoided Brahminhood. So given that situation, it becomes, it was the Jati structure that helped the Hindus to transfer the knowledge, arts and skills.
Sudha Mohan Garu, are you close to your winding up? I think we are.
So I got 2 more slides, sir. So another 5 to 10 minutes.
Not 10 minutes, sir, please. For the remaining 2 slides, I request you to take altogether just 4 minutes, 2 minutes for each slide and wind up.
Okay, so the Jati structure that we are seeing, we're only seeing it through the racial point of view or the secular point of view, but we need to also see this through the lens of medicine, because there was various contagious diseases and various types of sexual intermixture that occurred in the past. And the Jati structure helped us containing these negative effects which arose from these kinds of diseases. And another condition is that there is no racial intermixture in Hindu society, which is not entirely correct, because the 1901 Census Commissioner Risley himself says that the custom of hypergamy to be of a great antiquity and to prevail across India. That means many of the Jatis practiced anuloma marriages. So that's so the argument of endogamy is not entirely correct. And also the K.S. Lal in his books talks about Kshatriya women marrying the other Jatis, and during the Islamic destruction of Bharata, many Chamars also promoted to the Kshatrahood. And also many South Indian South Indian Boya Jati, there were inscriptions that say that tell us Mahamandaleshwars and the polygars are from these Jati, and they also worked in Tipu Sultan's army, but they fought against the British, and today they are considered as a scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in few states. And the same thing with the village police system. And many of the Taliaris or the village polices were they were given in Hindu kingdom, they were given jobs, but these jobs were taken away by the British. So they pushed them into poverty. British land reforms and all these things, they pushed these various present low caste or backward caste groups into various types of poverty. So Jati structure needs to be understood from this context also. And the British imposed caste system stopped the social mobility. The 1901 census removed Kula Varna social mobility. It ignored various aspects of mutual untouchability and fixated upon one version of Saucha, thus created a version of untouchability. It removed the Achara-based social mobility. It ignored various types of hierarchies existed in society and fixated on one-way pattern of colonial hierarchy. It is this we get to see in present-day caste studies in the form of a pyramid. Each Jati social status depended on various factors such as social relevance, contribution, character level of the representative individuals, respect gained, and capital generated, king's decision, achara, and so on. All these were replaced with one-way pattern of colonial centralized hierarchical caste system. Kshatra activities and vocations were more open to various Jatis. Many present-day Dalit Jatis were once into army and native police system. They thought of themselves as Kshatriya, but the colonial government denied this status to them. It imposed permanent birth-based low and highness in various Jatis, which can to various Jatis, and the status can't be changed. And importantly, British destroyed the spiritual sampradayas of the present-day low caste, due to which currently they are in an identity crisis. During Hindu rule, many Jatis tried to attain a better yogic and Varna position, and this resulted in upward social mobility. But in colonial and post-colonial constitutional governance, many Jatis are trying to register themselves as oppressed or lower caste, which means the society is moving towards lowness and towards bhoga or materialism. With this, I finish my presentation. Thanks for watching. Namaste.
This is the last slide. Please keep the last slide. Sudha Mohan Garu, please keep your last slide. Yeah. This is the book written by Sudha Mohan Garu, in which you may find a more detailed discussion of this wonderful, excellent, very comprehensive and advanced analysis of his argument. It is available on Amazon also, I think, Sudha Mohan Garu.
Yes, sir, it is available.
Yeah, okay.